Hello everyone, welcome into another episode of Last Protagonist Reacts to a bunch of videos. I hope you guys are doing well. So, on yesterday's stream, we actually went ahead and finished our playthrough of Fallout New Vegas and had a good time getting through the rest of the Lonesome Road DLC. Although I wasn't exactly happy with the endings that I got. I do think that the second ending I got was better than the first one. Well, the final ending I got was better than the second one, which was an ending compared to my very first one where I just kind of walked away from the quest because it didn't represent or reflect the decisions that I'd want to make. So anyway, now that I've gone through Fallout New Vegas, I do have a bunch of unanswered questions about some of the characters and factions of the game because I was a little bit too much of a murder hobo and I missed out on some of the details surrounding Caesar or Caesar's Legion, as well as a lot of the information surrounding Joshua Graham, which is also related to the Legion. So today I figured we could check out a couple videos. The first one by Max Durat. It's Fallout New Vegas, the Philosophy of Caesar. Curious to see where it's going to go with this, because, I don't know. It seems... Anyway. After that, we have Leon Talks a Lot, and this character has made people religious about Joshua Graham, and I had no idea about this until Mao brought that up on stream the other night. So I'm curious to see what this is about, and then to follow that one out, we have Fallout New Vegas, The Psychology of Joshua Graham by Max Durat, and I'm familiar with Max Durat's work already from his coverage of the Soulsborne games and things like that, but I've not checked out anything by Leon Talks a Lot, so hopefully these are some pretty good videos. Anyway, Mendacious Cat, Tanner, welcome back in. And if you guys are new to my stream, I'm Last Protagonist. I like to look at the lore of a lot of games, and yeah, I don't really have too much else to say right now, so let's go ahead and dive on in. The sound balance might be off, so if you guys let me know how the sound is compared to my voice, I can adjust it to make it good for everybody. So without further ado, let's check out Fallout New Vegas, The Philosophy of Caesar by Max Durat. And welcome on in, Robbie and Caleb. How's it going, guys? Looks like I could turn it up a little bit. Turn on the captions for you guys.
5 years ago, I did an analysis of the book Heart of Darkness and 2 of its adaptations. I made these videos during a very difficult time in my life, when I was struggling with my mental well-being and had exhausted a variety of medical interventions. I turned to Heart of Darkness during this time because I perceived similarities between my inner struggle and those of the characters in the book and the adaptations. They, too, were struggling with really dark thoughts that they could not reconcile with. Though granted, theirs were murderous and mine weren't. For reasons unknown to me at the time, I felt that by getting a grasp of what the heart was and why it had such possessive power, it would somehow enable me to confront my own inner darkness and prevent it from possessing me, like it did the villains in those stories. After a month of study, I understood that the term Heart of Darkness...
Was that Spec Ops The Line? I wasn't even really paying that much attention to it. I was kind of just reading the text and thinking about what he was saying, and been musing how I still haven't read Heart of Darkness. I've obviously heard about it, but I really don't know too much about it. But anyway, Mendacious, your stepbrother's just hit 10 years on his YouTube channel, and he has 10,000 subs. Nice. It's 1,000 subs a year.
Described the animalistic side of human beings, the side we suppress in order to get along in civilized society. From time to time, dispiriting events will occur in our lives that will make this uncivilized side break free from its shackles and threaten to take over our personality. The greatest heroes are the ones who maintain their morality in the face of this threat, and the greatest villains are...
I forgot to fix my chats on the screen, so give me a second here. I was going to say something else, but I got distracted. Oh yeah, I still haven't played The Last of Us, and don't know what all that's about either. Okay. I think we're good now. I feel like I'm forgetting something else. So, hey, Logos, welcome back in. How's it going? Solidus, your president? Oh, yeah?
Are the ones who honestly contend with it, but choose to give in to that horror. This is why characters like Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, the movie adaptation of Heart of Darkness, are so revered. It's also why characters
Oh, I remembered. Yeah, I'll apologize in advance, although it's not in advance at this point, for the frame rate. For whatever reason, whenever I stream YouTube on the second monitor, it just gets super choppy. I have no idea why. It's annoying.
that are based on him, such as Thanos from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, are elevated as archetypal villains. They seem of sound mind, educated, philosophical, qualities that should enable them to contend with their inner darkness, but they nonetheless fail and become corrupted. They then become convinced that the only way out of their predicament is to give that darkness the expression it craves. Otherwise, it will tear them apart from the inside. For 5 years, I had wondered how many villains had been inspired by the Kurtz character. I wanted to see how consistently the archetypal power of the Kurtz character could carry over to its imitators. But the only official examples I could find were Thanos and Baron Harkonnen from Dune. But this past year, I finally...
From Heart of Darkness? Okay, maybe... Yeah. I guess it would just have to be the book was inspired by Heart of Darkness as well. Because I was going to say Dune is kind of old, but Heart of Darkness is certainly older than the actual novels. Hey, Chadwick, how's it going?
Found a new subject in the character of Caesar from the video game Fallout New Vegas. The lead designer behind this game, Joshua Sawyer, confirmed this connection with the following quote. Both Caesar and Kurtz are men of intelligence and education who traveled from a life of relative comfort, technology.
I was going to say, is Caesar kind of young? I thought he was old. He looked a lot older when I saw him. Maybe it was the voice that led me to think he was so old and like the machines. But it just looks almost like he has a buzz cut. Maybe this is a limitation. Oh, maybe it's the mods. Okay, I don't know.
Logical wizardry and civilization into a wilderness full of warring people with relatively low education and a relatively primitive lifestyle. Both rose to power and were essentially deified for their intelligence, knowledge, and leadership capabilities. Both cut off communication with the outside world and lived in their, until now, remote savage kingdoms, using the most brutal means possible to deal with rare instances of dissent. While most of the pivotal life events are mirrored between the two characters, there is one key difference, one that evolves the Kurtzian archetype. Sawyer notes that where Kurtz's reign over his people was short-lived, Caesar's reign continues for a long, long time. A point of fascination for myself was what might have happened to Kurtz from the novel or the movie if they lived on for several decades. Would they have learned to contend with the madness in their soul? And if so, how? With Caesar...
I do wish he'd elaborate a little bit about that darkness in their soul. He did say that there was like murderous motivations or something within them. Maybe I spaced out a little bit too hard, but I still don't really entirely know too much about that guy's character, I feel like. Maybe that's a me problem. Also, welcome back in, Platinum Chip. How's it going? My motto is suffer not the cosplayer to live. That's not true. My motto is don't be trying to take my package, okay?
We find one possibility. Caesar is a fascistic dictator who, like Kurtz, is possessed by the Heart of Darkness and rules through brutal force. But unlike Kurtz, Caesar seemingly finds peace of mind, and does so through a patchwork philosophy, one he uses to justify his actions. In order to garner a full appreciation for the terror of that philosophy, it would be useful to review some of the key events from his life. Before he was Caesar, he was known as Edward Sallow. Edward was born in 2226 in an area known as the Boneyard, formerly
Oh, hell yeah, the actual retro footage here.
Los Angeles, California. At the age of 2, Edward and his mother sought shelter after his father was killed by raiders. Thankfully, both of them were taken in by the humanitarian organization known as the Followers of the Apocalypse, an organization that fell under the rule of the New California Republic at the time. As she cooked and cleaned for the followers, Edward learned how to read and started taking courses free of charge. Up until the age of 20, Edward was educated to become an agent for the followers. On their behalf, he would learn the dialects of tribes inhabiting the Utah region, specifically around the Grand Canyon, so they may receive the followers' humanitarian aid.
Now that I think about it, in some ways, that kind of reminds me of... I'm trying to remember the character's name. I'm probably not going to think of it. The savage that you can find in Brave New World who kind of read Shakespeare and self-educated himself that way, I guess. But the way that the tribes are depicted in 1984 kind of reminds me of the ways that the tribes are talked about in the Fallout franchise. But, yeah, I don't know. Robbie, you'd give the Nintendo Switch Direct today a C. You're only interested in the upgrade for Hollow Knight. I don't know if it's an actual upgrade for Hollow Knight itself as much as it is an upgrade compared to the Switch version, to be honest. Because everything that they talked about, I felt like I'd already had in the PC version with having super high frame rates and stuff like that. In New Vegas, the Legion was founded 34 years ago, longer than you thought, honestly. Okay, I guess that could make sense. Yeah, I mean, their reach is pretty surprising, like how large they are. So it makes sense to me that they had to have been around for a while, because that type of mentality that they have doesn't seem to be the most conducive for growth or even like having people assimilate into it quickly, if you know what I mean.
On the way to the canyon, he and his companions discovered a cache of historical texts, two of which made a significant impression on Edward. One was the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, and the other was Julius Caesar's book, Commentari de Bello Gallico. He was fascinated with these books, locking himself away for 2 weeks just to study them. Little did he know.
Quote, "It is easier to find men who will volunteer to die than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience. Men are nearly always willing to believe what they wish." Hey, without horns, how's it going?
That the knowledge gleaned from these texts,
"If you must break the law, do it to seize power. In all other cases, observe it." True.
to study them. Little did he know that the knowledge gleaned from these texts would be soon put to practical use. Prior to arriving at the Grand Canyon, Edward and his team met a Mormon missionary named Joshua Graham, a pre-established expert in tribal languages who would help the followers with their humanitarian mission. Their first encounter with a tribe known as the Blackfoot went less than ideal. The Blackfoot decided to hold them as hostages, an act that Joshua chastised himself for due to a potential mistranslation. Edward found himself in a dangerous situation, but not because he felt threatened by any of the Blackfoot.
The Blackfoot were at war with 7 other tribes, each just as pissant as they were. But outnumbered like that, they weren't going to last long. It's one thing to be taken hostage, another to be lashed to a sinking ship.
Unwilling to go down with said ship, Edward decided to use the military knowledge he gleaned from Caesar's commentary to educate the Blackfoot.
I taught them how to use the guns they already had, how to strip and clean them, how to breathe when pulling a trigger, how to reload ammunition. They looked at me like I was some kind of a sorcerer. So I taught them how to make explosives and started drilling them on small unit tactics.
When the time came for actual combat, Edward started to become as possessed by the spirit of Julius Caesar as he would soon be by the Heart of Darkness.
Hey, Global, Max the Rat Bingo, does he mention Carl Jung and does he mention alchemy? Not yet, but we have had a heart. Does that count for the bingo at all? Caleb, you can see how the second one's just completely true. There's people who believe the world is flat because it makes them feel smarter than scientists, you guess? The world used to be flat until Eru bent it into a sphere so we couldn't sail to the undying lands. Now, isn't the world shaped like a straw hat? With a ring?
He not only conquered all the other tribes, he did so in brutal fashion. He boasts about killing every man, woman, and child who wouldn't yield to him, displaying their corpses to other tribes in order to force fealty. Edward's justification for these crimes against humanity parallels that of Kurtz. Kurtz had become disillusioned with the US government for their moral hypocrisy, specifically regarding their actions during the Vietnam War. For a time, the US military seemed to covertly endorse Kurtz's brutal military strategies because they were effective. However, when evidence of Kurtz's actions became more or less public knowledge, and he refused to accept less efficient methods, the US military were forced to send an assassin to kill him. With no institutional backing for his methods, and the horrors of war corrupting him, Kurtz's morality became unmoored. This mirrors Edward's dissatisfaction with the new California Republic, the nation he grew up under. He believes that the pre-war culture and government of the US that the NCR was trying to emulate was also filled with moral hypocrisy and inefficiency.
The NCR has all the problems of the ancient Roman Republic. Extreme bureaucracy, corruption, extensive senatorial infighting. Greed runs rampant. The government is corrupt, accepting bribes from Brahmin barons and landowners to the detriment of citizens. The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good.
I do feel like that's kind of rich coming from Caesar, considering that he's literally a slave driver, the biggest one of them all. Sure, I guess if you want to make the argument that it's all in favor of the greater good, you could probably twist your ideology to make that work, but I don't really feel like he has a moral leg to stand on, comparatively speaking. For that, Horns, you're waiting for a callback to a previous video. Also, welcome back in, Mortis. How's it going? And Mao, welcome back. You Caesar ignoring how it took Rome hundreds of years to actually fall? I don't know enough about Caesar to be able to answer that, to be honest.
2 left Edward with an unmoored morality, a fact that was mirrored, interestingly enough, in Caesar's neutral karma status. Quoting Joshua Sawyer once,
Does this actually, like, is this real lore? I mean, I can imagine that there's karma values in the games. I just didn't even occur to me to think that the NPCs could have karma, and or what that implies about them if they do have certain karmas. It's kind of mind-boggling. I heard about that, Mortis. Glad you're happy about that.
again, whatever moral framework he had as Edward Sallow among the followers has disintegrated after years of being Caesar. I.e., it's not so much that his karma is neutral as much as it is alien. Unlike Kurtz, who could only...
I wonder what that means. I don't know enough about the karma system within the context of the game to know what I'm assuming that dev quote really means. Because it felt like the karma system was pretty mechanical, I guess. Although... I didn't really lose karma if I kept stealing from people that I was killing from, or killing, I don't know.
do so much with his loose conglomerate out in the Vietnamese jungle, Edward took maximum advantage of his situation. He had virtually invoked the spirit of Julius Caesar through his actions, assimilating enough of the surrounding tribes into one monolithic culture. Due to this, Edward felt it was only appropriate to change his name to Caesar, and name those he ruled over his legion. From the age of 20 to the age of 48, Caesar had conquered all of Arizona and New Mexico, with holdings in Utah and Colorado. In total, he had conquered 86 tribes. As I alluded to earlier, Kurtz was unlike Caesar because he had a deeper, more profound struggle with the immoral acts that he committed and saw others commit during wartime.
Tanner, you said looks like every NPC with karma has neutral karma. You'll keep checking on a few others though. Okay, thank you. I mean, I like the methodology if it works out. Like it's a very interesting thought provoking at that. But yeah, Eldon, you like how the name Mole Rat Snuffles has a higher intelligence stat than Caesar? Yellowstone Park Rangers have discovered that there's a significant overlap between the intelligence of the dumbest Legionnaire and the smartest Yao Guai.
Caesar, however, did not, or if he did, we never saw that struggle. Caesar seemed to be more focused on what he perceived to be a greater threat. With the NCR's growing influence, he predicted a future where they would repeat the patterns that led to not only the downfall of ancient Rome, but that of American culture and government. A downfall that precipitated the global thermonuclear war of 2077. The only way to solve this, in his mind, would be Pax Romana, a, quote, nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogenous culture that obliterates the identity of every group it conquers. And he will
so he was the commie threat all along, I see.
complete this goal as soon as he subsumes his most worthy foe, the NCR. He has a number of justifications for this dictatorial regime, but the most famous justification is his incitement of Hegelian dialectics. When I first announced that I was going to do videos on Fallout New Vegas, this was one of the subjects my viewers clamored for the most. Caesar's invocation of Hegelian dialectics gives us the deepest insight into not only Caesar's philosophy.
Looks like I really missed a lot by knocking this dude's block off, huh? There you go, Logos, your Hegelian dialectics.
But his psychology as well. To give a proper understanding of Hegel, I do need to provide a brief history of a philosophical tradition he belonged to, one known as idealism. In one sentence, idealism proposes that our perception of reality is greatly influenced by our mind. It is a philosophy that has a admittedly metaphysical, spiritual bent. One of its earliest precursors, Anaxagoras from ancient Greece, held the belief that all material objects in the universe are and were created by mind. This belief, of course, finds echoes in Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. But to what extent do ideas in our mind influence our reality? One of the most famous proposals in the idealist tradition comes from Immanuel Kant. He believed that human perception was just as imperfect as every other part of us, which prevents us from having a perfect understanding of reality. In other words, we cannot understand reality and its components in and of themselves, what Kant referred to as the noumena. Instead, we can only formulate imperfect ideas about the noumena, and these imperfect ideas were called phenomena. For example, we create the ideas of time and space in order to perceive space-time. The aforementioned Hegel concurred with this perception to a degree. One of his most famous quotes was that the rational is real and the real is rational. Basically, this means that our rationality produces ideas that help us perceive reality. But Hegel differed from Kant in two major respects. One, Hegel believed that there are certain shared ideas that pre-exist us, ones that we think we create, but instead reveal themselves to us through intuition. These ideas include things like culture, society, well-being, government, religious ideas, symbols, etc. The primary way these ideas manifest is through what Hegel refers to as the spirit. Now, the second thing that Hegel disagreed with Kant about was the belief that the noumena could not be understood. Hegel believed that by having the spirit constantly intermingle with itself through human interaction, our understanding of phenomena will evolve into an understanding of the noumena. This would continue on and on until the end of time, when the spirit reached apotheosis. This process is what Hegel referred to as the dialectic. As for how the process of dialectic goes, I will let Caesar speak.
The fundamental premise is to envision history as a sequence of dialectical conflicts. Each dialectic begins with a proposition, a thesis, which inherently contains or creates its opposite, an antithesis. Thesis and antithesis. The conflict is inevitable.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm watching this because I definitely missed this. So I would just kind of disagree with the false dichotomy that gets brought up with Caesar's ideology. And then we could make some jokes that because he came up with this ideology, I am being produced to oppose it, I guess. But yeah, I've never really been a fan of dualism in many respects because I feel like that which is dual only becomes dual if you have a fulcrum from which you can pivot extremes against each other. And then the closer you get to the middle, like the less of a distinction there is. And so like dualism makes a lot of sense for a lot of things, but I don't think it's like the end all be all out there. So anyway, Tanner, you were saying that Benny is evil in terms of karma and Wolpez and Colta is very evil. Good. Those guys are jerks. One of them shot me in the face. Isn't this Eva? It sounds like Eva. I don't think so. No. I would not say so.
But the resolution of the conflict yields something new, a synthesis, eliminating the flaws in each, leaving behind common elements and ideas.
Applying this to Fallout New Vegas, the spirit of mankind could evolve no further through the NCR, the thesis. Thus, the spirit needed to create an antithesis to oppose it. This spirit first manifested itself through Edward Sallow and evolved into the Legion. Through confrontation, the NCR and Caesar's Legion will let their bad ideas die off and the good ideas remain, producing a synthesis of the two. This is the philosophy that Caesar uses to justify his brutality. Just as Caesar is possessed by the Heart of Darkness and the spirit of Caesar, he is also possessed by the Hegelian spirit.
I would have laughed so hard if he said that he's possessed by stupidity. I digress.
Now, the Hegelian dialectic provokes its own set of theses and antitheses in my mind. On the positive side, it quasi-validates some of my favorite ideas from the realm of metaphysics and psychology. Obviously, if any of you have been watching my channel for a while, you will have heard me speak about a metaphysical concept known as the union of opposites. Having opposing forces unite to create something greater and even divine is a common idea in Eastern traditions, as well as the Hermetic traditions like Kabbalah and occult magic. Also, the notion that people do not have ideas, but ideas have people is basic psychoanalysis. And Hegel's conception of the spirit as an idea that has people is intriguing. However, like with many of Caesar's ideas, they sound good at first, but fall apart under minimal scrutiny. One of the biggest problems I and others have with the concept of the Hegelian spirit is how it negates human choice. The idea that human beings are the puppets of this spirit manifesting itself throughout history does not seem to allow for human agency. Even if, as psychoanalysis posits, we are the puppets of ideas, is the purpose of consciousness not to choose which ideas are the best, independent of this supposed spirit? Plus, Hegel seems
I wouldn't necessarily agree with this line of argument here. I mean, for all intents and purposes, if we were to define consciousness as kind of like awareness, I don't necessarily think that has to imply that there's agency or free agency and things like that, but that would take a whole other type of discussion to kind of settle. And of course, Max can't really reply to me directly here unless he hops into the chat somehow. But anyway, I think I'll leave that alone for now.
to think that every confrontation between a thesis and antithesis will necessarily produce a superior synthesis, even though fictional and non-fictional events suggest otherwise. I will use one key example from Fallout New Vegas to demonstrate what I mean. As far as we know, Caesar was victorious in every battle he fought, save for one, the first Battle of Hoover Dam, where he lost to the NCR. Of the many reasons the Legion lost, the primary one involves their refusal to use long-range weapons and explosives. Though Caesar's Legion is the greatest when it comes to short-range and hand-to-hand combat, they lack the long-range tactical advantage that the NCR has. Here, we see potential for synthesis. Caesar has a point when he states that over-reliance on weapons will weaken the individual. But no matter how hard an individual trains, a legionary with a lance will be no match for a soldier with a sniper rifle. An ideal synthesized soldier would embrace the good points of both sides, but
maybe he'll address this, but from my understanding, part of the reason why they lost the Hoover Dam is because Joshua Graham wasn't able to adapt well enough, and he just kind of used the old reliable, and it proved to not be very reliable in a narrow passage, and they kind of got mowed down by the NCR. Whereas I could definitely see Caesar doing a different approach and maybe having more success, or at least not as heavy losses. They also use top-down leadership tactics similar to what modern-day Russia does. Yeah, they are a little bit too regimented and can't operate as cells of a larger organism, so to speak.
Caesar saw things differently. After losing the Battle of Hoover Dam, he did not learn from his mistakes. He doubled down on his belief that fighting with long-range weapons was dishonorable. Now, some might retort by pointing out that Caesar seems willing to let elements of his culture die out during the dialectic conflict with the NCR.
The NCR Council will be eradicated, but the new synthesis will change the Legion as well.
Granted, but he seems to be awfully selective about when he applies this attitude. Not only that, but how he applies it as well. Who is to say that there needs to be a violent conflict with the NCR for a proper dialectic synthesis? Even if a dialectic takes place, who is to say that Caesar would be willing to let go of his cultural traditions and practices? For example,
well, those are valid questions. I think it's been demonstrated that the Legion's modus operandi was to kind of conquer all other tribes that it comes across, and in their eyes, I'm assuming the NCR is no different than a very large tribe that also needs to be conquered. So you could say that that conflict is just kind of built in between how the Legion treats anybody who's not Legion. But of course, I could be missing something here.
I have a hard time believing he'd let go of his culture's reliance on slave labor in favor of the NCR's market economies, or let go of the subjugation of women in favor of their employment. This would allow the citizens he controls to gain their own degrees of power, which would inherently threaten his own. The stability of the Legion, up until this point, has relied on keeping his citizens ignorant and slavish, even though this is to his detriment. He suffers from a brain tumor that nobody in his Legion can operate on, due to their lack of medical knowledge or knowledge in general. Ultimately, the invocation of dialectics, though it has a modicum of practical applicability, is mostly just an excuse so that Caesar can satiate his bloodlust. I had put off doing this video for a while. I had feared that by giving somebody like Caesar his due in any regard, some people might think I was justifying the brutality of a dictator. But that's not true. Instead, I'm trying to analyze the common elements between Caesar and others of his ilk, in fiction and real life. That way, we can rebut the arguments of potential dictators before their influence grabs hold of impressionable minds, a la the Hegelian spirit or the Heart of Darkness. The common thread
I like how the subtitles use a different form of Allah.
That I see
Allah.
among these villains
Allah?
is a handful of valid criticisms regarding their ideological opponents and or the state of the world. They then use those valid criticisms to justify extremity, the unleashing of human savagery. Though there are many arguments in favor of their ideological opponents and against themselves, they will be ignored so that they can assert their tyrannical will. Except the thing is, in the case of somebody like Caesar, it's not really his will. It's the will of the ideas that possess him. When I came to this realization with the Kurtz character 5 years ago, I saw how I, too, was controlled by ideas that were not my own. Instead of choosing the path of unconscious bliss where ideas directed my will, I chose the more difficult path. The one that neither Caesar nor the NCR could accomplish. I chose synthesis. Actual synthesis, not Caesar's brand. I dedicated myself to examining all ideas honestly, calmly, and trying to extract the good where possible. Even though there will always be times where I, like Kurtz, feel unmoored, where I anxiously question my worldview, I will always choose the more difficult path of conscious self-reflection, of synthesis. At least with this path, the ideas that control us can die, instead of us. I want to offer my deepest thanks to 3 people. Thank you Corbin, once again, for encouraging me to do videos on Fallout New Vegas. Thank you Arcane for discussing Hegelian dialectics with me. And finally, thank you to my podcast co-host, Cybsidian, for using his Fallout expertise to help me check my work. By the way, yes, I have a gaming podcast. If you want to check that out, go check out the SSS podcast channel in the description box below. Make sure to give this video a like if you liked it, that helps me out a lot. If you want to see other Fallout related content, click on any of the videos you see on screen now. Until next time, remember to stay safe and stay yellow.
If I could just...
Alright, that was a cool video. I am glad to have watched it because it helped bring me up to speed with Caesar and the Legion and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and share it with you guys in the chat. If you want to give Max Durat any support, by all means, I encourage it. And I'm going to go ahead and like the video as well. Who would win, one evil dictator or a silly brain tumor? Probably the tumor. Mendacious, you could see Caesar pushing east and painting the Enclave in Chicago as his next great enemy to conquer. If he beat the NCR, you mean? Or just like in general? Okay, so next we have This Character Has Made People Religious by Leon Talks a Lot. So, I know very little about Josh Graham other than his sidekick Daniel is a jerk. And they didn't give me no map. And this dude assembles guns a lot. Anyway, here we go.
Describe Joshua Graham in 20 seconds. Here's how I would do it.
Oh crap! All 2020, I'm banging
That's a little bit loud. How is the sound for you guys?
for Christ. I got a bullet for every nigga that ain't about God this year. You ain't in church? Pow! You ain't in Bible study? Bang! You ain't popping that pussy for Jesus? Blamski! God, God, God!
Okay. Let's rewind and start from the beginning. This is Joshua Graham, a character featured in the Honest Hearts DLC for the 2010 classic Fallout New Vegas, and in my opinion, one of the most interesting and terrifying fictional characters ever made. Joshua Graham is a person with a dark past who, for a very good reason, has devoted the rest of his life to serving his God. A man filled with hatred under a calm and assertive...
Can't tell if it's actually going to remain having subtitles of its own or not. But anyway, hey Meow Laser, welcome back in. How are you doing?
demeanor, who many consider not only ruthless, but also righteous. A religious character so compelling that it has convinced people to return to church and to even read the Bible. And as this comment so eloquently puts it, this man can convince the most atheist Redditor to become the most God-fearing churchgoer.
But we can't expect God to do all the work.
But let me be clear, while you might walk away from this video with a new perspective on Christianity, this video was not made to convert you in any way. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness who desires to convert non-believers into God-fearing Christians. In fact, I myself, although I've been baptized, do not consider myself religious. Do I believe God exists? Yes. Do I believe in any mainstream religion? No. I'm simply here to entertain you and talk to you about one of my favorite characters. This is Joshua Graham, aka the Burn.
Alright, I could appreciate the little, what do you call it? A come to God moment where he's laying out his beliefs pretty straightforwardly here. We'll still have to see whether or not he's going to try to convert or proselytize us, but time will tell.
Man, a character so good, it has made people religious. Fallout New Vegas is a game set in the far future of 2281, 204 years after a nuclear war that turned the US into a radioactive wasteland. Our story starts here in post-nuclear Zion Valley, a part of the beautiful Zion National Park in Utah. We are a courier, and our caravan was ambushed by tribal raiders known as Whitelegs. By the time bullets stopped flying, we were the only one left, leading to us being spotted by a friendly tribal scout named Follow Shock, who takes us to his tribe leader. This tribe leader is Joshua, leading the tribe known as the Dead Horses. Before meeting him, however, we get warned by a tribal to show respect to Joshua as he's the acting war chief. When we first see Joshua, we see a man in a cave covered in bandages, inspecting pistols. He seems to be preparing for something. The haste at which Joshua inspects these pistols, and a large stack of them that he's already looked at, subconsciously indicating to us that Joshua is a man who at the very least is very familiar with this weapon, or a man who is very used to inspecting firearms of all types to prepare for past battles. Two predictions that turn out to be true as soon as we start speaking with him.
We should have given you a better welcome on your first visit to Zion. But from what I hear, the Whitelegs beat us to it. Whitelegs seem to be the only visitors we have these days, and I wouldn't have expected anyone from the Mojave to come looking for us. And you're a courier, no less.
Alright, I'm going to guess the captions aren't going to continue, so I'm going to turn them on, and if they get annoying, rip, I tried.
Not the one I was expecting, but I suppose he wouldn't have come with a caravan. I don't know if you were close to the other members of your group, but you have my sympathy. I pray for the safety of all good people who come to Zion, even Gentiles. But we can't expect God to do all the work.
Gentile is another word used for someone who's not of Jewish faith. However, Joshua, as we'll soon find out, is a Mormon. The Mormon use of the word refers to an outsider instead. Since the slaughter of our caravan happened only hours ago, we can ask Joshua how he knows of our misfortune so quickly, making it seem as if he were there to view or even prevent it.
The Dead Horses are capable scouts. Nothing passes into or out of Zion without my hearing of it.
I came here with the Happy Trails Caravan Company to make contact with the New Canaanites.
Happy Trails. I remember. They were good friends. I have bad news for your employers. New Canaan was destroyed.
So, even though he tells us New Canaan was destroyed, we had a bunch of text in the end card saying that the New Canaanites were upset that they couldn't make contact with the Happy Trails dudes again, and that makes it sound as though New Canaan was still around. So if that is true, which I assume it should be because I'm guessing it was written in the limited omniscient third-person perspective, then this might show that Josh Graham is either lying or deceiving us for his own purposes, which I don't really know too much about because reasons.
Citizens scattered. All because of the Whitelegs. And Caesar, of course. The Whitelegs want to join the Legion. Caesar's rite of passage is the destruction of the New Canaanites, almost assuredly because of me. The good news is that we can help you find your way back. Daniel, one of the other New Canaanites, has made many maps of the region. The bad news is that we can't help you right now, not with everything that's going on.
To understand what Joshua is saying here, you first have to know a little bit more about the plot of Fallout New Vegas itself. In Fallout New Vegas, there are two main factions. The New California Republic, a corrupt society based on old world values, like bottle capitalism, that aims to restore the post-nuclear wasteland to its former law and order glory. And Caesar's Legion, a fascist regime.
I will say, though, that bottle capitalism line was a top quality pun. Excellent, sir.
Clear wasteland to its former law and order glory, and Caesar's Legion, a fascist regime hell-bent on long-term stability, even in favor of all individuality. Effectively, an army of slaves that only serves one man, Caesar. The Whitelegs, a group of savages who destroyed our caravan, aims to join Caesar's Legion by destroying all New Canaanites and anyone in their way, Joshua Graham being their main target. Faced with this ultimatum, we have two ways of getting out of this valley, either by helping Joshua and another New Canaanite named Daniel in fighting the Whitelegs, or by killing Daniel and Joshua and taking the map off their dead bodies. If the player suggests
You only need to get rid of one of them.
Violence over diplomacy, Joshua explains why that wouldn't end well for you in the most bone-chilling way.
There are many reasons why that would be a bad idea. I will illuminate 3. First, do not believe that because Daniel is a missionary, he is incapable of or unwilling to defend himself. Second, if you harm Daniel or any of the sorrows or dead horses, I will find you. Make no mistake. God willing, you will not leave this valley. Lastly,
I will say that this dude has definitely put in a lot of effort using the free cam to get his shots. I noticed that earlier. It really does take a lot of time to do stuff like this, so I'm definitely respecting the effort that's gone into it. Hey, SNX, how's it going? I'm doing pretty well, and yourself?
waging war against good people is bad for the soul. This may not seem important to you now, but it's the most important thing I've said.
Now that rejecting Joshua's offer seems thoroughly off the table, we can alternatively
Oh, is it now?
agree to help Joshua, to which he will say this.
You're a good neighbor to us. We all go through periods of darkness. In such times, we can turn to the Lord, but it's good to have friends. Daniel and I need pre-war tools to help us navigate beyond Zion. Should we need to evacuate, these instruments will be vital to us. Normally, we would have some of the dead horses or sorrows look for them, but many pre-war buildings in the valley are taboo. They won't go inside.
Now that we have our task, we are free to ask Joshua about some questions we might have. The first of which is dependent on the player's affinity/disdain for the Legion.
I am a little bit curious about why the dead horses or the other tribes thought that pre-war buildings were taboo. That might have been expanded upon, but I didn't really get the most scenic playthrough of Honest Hearts.
Player is allied with the Legion and has met Caesar, we can choose to threaten Joshua by telling Caesar where he is.
I think that would put him and you in a difficult position. Caesar has agents looking for me, but he won't admit I'm alive. And even if you killed me, he can't acknowledge that. To do so would be to admit I had never died.
Hold on, my dog distracted me. What was that? The dialogue at the beginning?
About some questions we might have. The first of which is dependent on the player's affinity/disdain for the Legion. If the player is allied with the Legion and has met Caesar, we can choose to threaten Joshua by telling Caesar where he is.
I think that would put him and you in a difficult position. Caesar has agents looking for me, but he won't admit I'm alive. And even if you killed me, he can't acknowledge that. To do so would be to admit I had never died, that Caesar made a mistake. No, he lives by his lies and shall die by his lies. There is no escaping it.
Making an
Interesting. That just makes Caesar seem like even more of a chud than he is.
attempt on Joshua's life is ultimately meaningless. In my run, however,
we'd like to take a moment to announce
to which we're able to deliver Joshua some much-deserved good news.
I have to admit, it's hard to believe that even after all he did to me, all he tried to do to find and erase me from this world, he went first. No doubt this will be good for the Mojave. I can
Wait, how come I didn't get that option? Probably was like, I don't care, get me out of here. But that's probably exactly what it was, huh?
only hope Arizona and the tribes don't suffer as the Legion falls apart around them.
Finally, we're able to talk to Joshua about his guns.
In the Great Basin and Colorado Plateau, all tribes are known for a specific weapon. Whitelegs are known for their big submachine guns, storm drums. They broke into an armory near Spanish Fork and have been using them for years. Of course, the Dead Horses have their wooden war clubs, and even the Sorrows have their Yao Guai gauntlets. This type of .45 automatic pistol was designed by one of my tribe almost 400 years ago. Learning its use is a new Canaanite rite of passage.
The tribe member Joshua's
Smith. Hey, Katie, welcome back.
referring to here is in fact the legendary real-world gun designer John Moses Browning.
Oh, is
who,
it
like
Browning?
Joshua, grew up a Mormon in Ogden, Utah, before going on to design countless iconic firearms such as the 1911 pistol, the Browning High Power, the Browning Auto 5, lever action 1886, 1897 trench gun, semi-auto Model 8 rifle, M1919 light machine gun, and finally the M2 heavy machine gun chambered in the giant 50 BMG, still in use, along with many, many other designs. The gun Joshua is inspecting here is a 1911 chambered in .45 ACP. By the way, this inspection animation is just incredible. Not only is it really cool and slick, but it's actually pretty realistic considering this game is 13 years old. He starts by pulling back the slide and ejecting the magazine, before inspecting the chamber, firing pin, and ejector. Next, he flips the gun around to inspect the rifling of the barrel before reinserting the magazine and releasing the slide. 10 out of 10. It's great. But enough nerdy gun talk, let's go back to Joshua and ask him about why he cares so much for his
That really is an impressive resume. Oh yeah, Browning is kind of ridiculous. Do design like half of all the guns we use today. Yep, pretty prolific.
religious practices.
I am a new Canaanite. We believe we are the heirs of a spiritual tradition given to our ancestors thousands of years ago. We have made and kept covenants with our Lord God to honor his laws. In exchange, we are promised eternal salvation after this life. A day will come when our Lord returns to judge us all. Until then, we must honor his laws and start others along the path of salvation if we can. That's why we trade with others and work the tribes. We have more than food and medicine to offer. Good news is our most valuable commodity.
We can of course
I guess. Oh, good news. I wonder if that's a bit of a pun. Anyway, the fact that he said that they have medicine to offer is also kind of a good indicator of his split from the Legion as well, huh?
question Joshua further if we act dismissively, to which Joshua will show us some patience and explain further into what he believes.
I know it may be hard for you to accept or even to understand. In my heart, I believe that though I am a sinner, I have been saved. And I believe there is something beyond this rock, and this air, and this water around us. Something more that is waiting for us. I have been baptized twice, once in water, once in flame. I will carry the fire of the Holy Spirit inside until I stand before my Lord for judgment.
We finally learn why Joshua wears bandages, supposedly having been baptized by fire after some unfortunate event. The pieces are all there, but we'll have to help Joshua and the Saros tribe before he opens up about his past. Now leaving Dead Horse Point with our objective, we are tasked with collecting various pieces of equipment throughout Zion Valley and hand them over to Daniel, another Mormon missionary and leader of the Saros tribe. First, we must collect a compass in the wreckage of an old school bus before repairing it with either skill or by using spare parts found close by. Next, we must find 2 walkie-talkies in a locked cabinet in a fishing lodge. Obtaining these are fairly straightforward. Lastly, we must gather both a medical kit and, for some reason, 5 lunchboxes. Why? No clue. It's annoying though. They're hidden.
And so that way, when they do their evacuation, they can have some snacks for 40 people, 5 lunchboxes. Sounds about right.
pretty well. Now with our bucket list of items in hand, we head over to the Sorrows tribe, where we are greeted by Waking Cloud, a Sorrows tribal who leads us to Daniel.
The dead horse has told me details about the attack on your caravan. A stranger's sympathy might not count for much, but for what it's worth, I'm sorry. The Sorrows will mourn your friends too. They mourn everyone, even the Whitelegs. They have sensitive souls. Innocent, if there is such a thing. In spite of what's happened, I hope that Joshua and I can help you out of here. But to be frank, we need your help too.
Giving Daniel his supplies, he gives us the bad news.
Well, I'll be. I was starting to lose hope we'd be able to get any of this, much less all of it. Tribals are smart, but, well, they're ignorant. Letting go of a taboo is difficult for them. So I knew it would have to be one of us. Turns out all it took was a Gentile, or, no offense. These supplies are a godsend. But if we're going to evacuate Zion without drawing more Whiteleg attention, I need you to go back into the valley. Specifically, I need you to scout out some locations for Whitelegs and try to recover a map of Grand Staircase, a wilderness area to the east. There's also the matter of the roads. We're going to be heading out of the east side of the park, but I'm not sure the way is clear.
Whatever I can do to help, Daniel.
I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Aw, hell no.
There aren't a lot of people in the wasteland with kindness to spare for anyone who isn't kin. After this, it's just a matter of getting everyone out of here safe and sound. And hopefully you can head back to the Mojave without any more trouble.
Daniel makes it clear that he intends to evacuate the Sorrows tribe. However, Joshua has other plans. Something he justifies with scripture, as we find out as soon as we try to leave the Sorrows camp.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem.
Did I screw this up because I was trying to fast travel around? Well, I guess I didn't. No. I didn't really have a chance. It just took me forever to find Daniel the second time. So, yeah, Daniel pissed me off, and then I immediately murked him because the dude is stupid. Just hand me a piece of paper, let me be on my way, we would all be happy. I hate Daniel.
Who said, raise it even to the foundation. O daughter of Babylon, who ought to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Do you know what it means?
In case you don't speak Old English, let me translate that one for you. Alongside Babylon's streams, there we sat down, crying because we remembered Zion. Lord, remember what Edomites did on Jerusalem's darkest day. Rip it down, all the way to its foundations. O daughter of Babylon, you bitch! I hope what you did to us gets done to you. Bless on the motherfucker who takes your children and smashes them against the stone. Yeah, safe to say that Joshua wants revenge for what the Whitelegs did to his Mormon buddies.
Given those two choices, yes. In the best of all possible worlds, they would just leave us in peace. But they won't. I don't enjoy killing, but when done righteously, it's just a chore, like any other. Practiced hands make for short work, and the good Lord knows there's much to be done here.
By the way, this is like one of the best responses in any Fallout game. So yeah, Joshua, what's up with the baby murder thing?
Happy are those who do the work of the Lord. Zion belongs to God and the people of God. It is a natural temple and monument to his glory. When our Lord entered the temple and found it polluted by money changers and beasts, did he ask them to leave? Did he cry? Did he simply walk away? No. He drove them out. It is one thing to forgive a slap across my cheek, but an insult to the Lord requires... No. It demands correction.
Listen, Joshua, I don't know if you figured this out yet, but I don't believe in what you believe.
Then as a Gentile, you should find this to be even more beneficial. If the Sorrows stay in Zion, you will always have a link to New Canaan. If the Sorrows leave Zion, so too do the New Canaanites. What's more, you'll have more whitelegs coming farther south. You may not be concerned over matters of faith, but this is a case where faith and practicality coincide. No one wants the whitelegs here. We just need to convince Daniel that it's our responsibility to ensure that doesn't happen.
Joshua aims to turn the innocent tribal sorrows into warriors by defending their home, Zion Valley, against the wishes of Daniel. This certainly needs some thought, though, before we commit to this. Luckily for us, Joshua finally has some spare time to talk about his past.
It's not something I enjoy, but I pray to God that someone may learn from my mistakes. What would you like to know?
First, we can offer him help with his burns if we have a speech level higher than 70.
You are kind to offer, but no, there's nothing you can do. We don't use chems, but I learned long ago that I'm immune to their effects. It never stops burning my skin. Every day I have to unwind the bandages and replace them with fresh ones. Exposing my body to the air is like living through it again. But it's better to be clean than comfortable.
Unfortunately, we can't do anything to help Joshua with his wounds, but what we can do is ask him about the
Unfortunately, screw this dude. I don't care about him.
origins of them.
I was born in Ogden, what people came to call New Canaan. Things were more peaceful when I was growing up. When I was a young man, I went out into the world to do missionary work, as all New Canaanites do. I traveled along the Long 15 and followed 89 south into Arizona. Along the way, I met two men from a group called the Followers of the Apocalypse. Edward Sallow and Bill Calhoun. They came to teach the tribes. Calhoun was a good man. Edward was the one who got us into trouble down the road.
Recognizing Caesar's real name, we can inquire further.
No, not then. Back then he was just Edward. Smart man. Young, but we all were. We thought we could hike into the Grand Canyon and talk to Blackfoots. We did. And the Blackfoots were friendly enough at first. But eventually, I've thought back to that day so many times. I must have mistranslated. Something must have been mixed up, because the Blackfoots decided we weren't going to leave. The rest is history, assuming Edward hasn't changed it.
I am a little bit curious, though, because sure, maybe there was a mistranslation, or maybe there wasn't, and they just couldn't conceive of some people having a completely different set of values than they did. Really curious what he thought he said versus what the Blackfoots understood. Welcome back, Mal.
Now we know that Joshua was there for the formation of the Legion, converting an already existing tribe into a war-ready army.
This way lies the path to hell. Caesar needed me to translate. Translation became giving orders. Giving orders became leading in battle. Leading in battle became training, punishing, terrorizing. A series of small mistakes before a great fall. And I stayed in that darkness until after Hoover Dam. After I failed Caesar and he had me burned alive, thrown into the Grand Canyon.
Specifically covered in pitch, a form of tree sap or residue from oil refinement, then thrown from the canyon far enough up to break countless bones. Despite this, he allegedly didn't even scream on the way down.
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me. I fell down into that dark chasm. The flame burned on and on. The next morning, I woke up and crawled out of the northern edge of the Grand Canyon. That cursed place.
I wonder how he did this, like, mechanically. This seems like it'd be super time-consuming.
It took me 3 months to reach New Canaan. It was as though the prodigal son had returned. They welcomed me like I had never left. Never done anything to shame them. The fire that had kept me alive was love. Their love. God's love. I will never be able to repay the debt I owe to them. But I must try.
To survive such an execution, then make it all the way back to a home that forgave his heinous sin, is a blessing random chance doesn't seem good enough to make come true. Because of this, Joshua believed God forgave him for what he had done and granted him a second chance at living a righteous life. He forgave.
Oh yeah, so that reminded me, Katie, that apparently Bethesda is releasing Fallout 4 and was it the Oblivion remake on Switch 2? So I wonder if this kind of dashes some hopes for a Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas remaster, if this wasn't the big news that we were waiting for, I guess.
Forgave all who had wronged him, even Caesar, accepting to trade in his currency and still believing that he is redeemable. Now knowing how experienced Joshua is in combat, we have an understanding that the victory of the Sorrows and the Dead Horses over the White Legs is as good as guaranteed. An escape might only create more death. But before we make that assumption, we should know what we're up against. So we ask about the leader of the White Legs, Salt Upon Wounds.
He's a butcher. Believe me, I know the godless fire that burns in his heart. I've been burned by it myself. He's not the kind to let his subordinates do all the killing. No, he likes to have a hand in it, with that spear of his. He's fashioned himself an abomination before the eyes of the Lord. I'm happy to serve as an instrument of divine justice.
He's also responsible for the destruction of Joshua's home, New Canaan, and the killer of his family. Naturally, Joshua wants revenge, something he might not want to admit, even to himself. Before we can commence the assault, however, we'll need to do some preventative strikes that make sure the bones of the White Legs break as soon as possible. Gathering a map, killing mutated bears, but most importantly, destroying both tramps and camps built by the White Legs. Only then do we have the opportunity to go into battle with Joshua. But first, we have to give Daniel the bad news about the future of his innocent sorrows.
Well, that's it. This is all we need. Now all that's left is to quietly pack up and try to get out of here without being noticed. That's assuming that Joshua won't try to stop me. And that he hasn't talked you into fighting the White Legs despite what I've said. Don't worry, I don't hold it against you. You're an outsider. Fighting seems like the practical solution. I'll tell you again, there's more at stake.
In my eyes, if we don't turn the Sorrows into capable fighters, they'll stay easy prey for the violent wasteland. All Daniel is doing by fleeing is deciding where the Sorrows end up eradicated, here in Zion or out in the Mojave. I fully agree with Joshua's desire to destroy the White Legs. Maybe not for religious reasons, but certainly for practical ones.
No, why?
Not to be all, if you kill a killer, you're no better than them, but kind of unironically, aren't you in this case? I mean, sure, I don't think that the White Legs are good, but, I don't know, it just seems convoluted, and you just kind of justify it for yourself, but, I feel like if the shoe is on the other foot, what's really the difference here? I don't know. All right, without horns, you have a good night. Take care.
Why? Haven't you seen enough of what's going on here to see that the Sorrows don't need to butcher the White Legs for a piece of land? What Joshua wants is more than an attack. He wants a slaughter. And he needs more than you and the Dead Horses to do it. The Sorrows can't be pushed into this. You and Joshua don't have the right to force them into it. Please, consider what I'm saying.
This is the way the world is. They're a part of it, whether you like it or not.
No. This is how we made the world. And we brought it to them.
Now with the decision made, we start the battle for Zion Valley, side by side with Joshua.
Thank you for this. I know Daniel doesn't approve, but destroying the White Legs is the only way to ensure the Sorrows can remain in Zion. You and I will lead a group of
Why must they remain in Zion? I still don't fully understand that position.
Dead Horse warriors and Sorrows hunters into 3 Marys from this position. Our objective is to find the White Legs leader, Salt Upon Wounds, and prevent him from fleeing. Show no quarter to the White Legs we come across. Make no mistake about why we are here. This is an extermination.
No quarter. That feels like a little bit of an extra step. KD, you're 100% on Joshua's side because his voice is beyond sexy. Oh no, he's hot.
God be with you.
Now with Joshua as our temporary companion,
He's hot because he was on fire.
we make our way through Zion Valley, nay-naying any whitelegs we come across until we reach their home. Once we make it there, it's clear that the dead horses and sorrows had already begun their assault. Before we can make it to Salt Upon Wounds, however, our path gets blocked by a last-ditch effort of the whitelegs to repel the attack long enough for them to escape.
You take a sip from your trusty Vault 13 canteen.
This is taking too long. We can't let Salt Upon Wounds escape. I'm going to find a way around. God willing, we will finish this together.
Now in the heart of the camp, we can see many of the dead horses and even sorrows executing various white-leg warriors, keeping true to Joshua's goal of a slaughter.
We warned you at Syracuse, and you persisted. You took advantage of us at New Canaan to drive us out. And like the dogs of Caesar you are, you followed us to Zion. And now you stand on holy ground, a temple to God's glory on earth. The only use for an animal in our temple is sacrifice.
Does this dude not know that the American Zion is not the same Zion? I'm actually curious about that. Okay, do you assume they consider Zion their Israel, and therefore they'd consider it the holy land given from God, or by God? I'm curious.
Chene conserva o. You understand me, don't you? Don't you?
In a plea of desperation, Salt Upon Wounds asks for the player's intervention. If the player has a sneering imperialist perk, the player can dismiss this and ask Joshua to just get it over with.
Baika Kur, you devil!
Oh yeah, that's true, Logos. I forgot about it. Mormons believe they came to America, the Israelites. I wonder... But I mean, I guess I don't know enough about Mormonism and their beliefs about the Zion National Park here.
There. That's it. It's finished. When they hear what happened here, the Whitelegs will crawl back to their great Salt Lake.
Now with the battle over, Joshua ordered the tribals to burn the bodies of the Whitelegs, as those remaining ran away in fear after seeing Salt Upon Wounds die. This, however, is not the best ending for either the Sorrows or Joshua himself, as the Sorrows learned that mercy is for the weak after seeing what Joshua did to those that threatened him, turning the Sorrows into ruthless warriors no better than the raiders of the Mojave, and Joshua into more or less the same ruthless general he was under Caesar. At first, it seems that maybe Daniel would have been right in trying to escape. If we do side with Daniel, we learn that the escape didn't go off without a hitch as Daniel had hoped. Not only did many more Sorrows die, but many others were also captured by the Whitelegs. The only way to save the Sorrows now is to take the fight to them like Joshua had intended in the beginning, freeing all captured Sorrows and killing every single Whiteleg, terrorizing the fleeing tribals, including Salt Upon Wounds. Only then, with this additional great effort, does Daniel's plan to escape kind of work, as the weakened Whitelegs were unable to pursue the Sorrows with a violent pushback from the dead horses. In this ending, the dead horses flourish as the Sorrows are burdened to a harsh readjustment to their new surroundings. While this ending may be the best, even Daniel, its creator, is uncertain if the deaths of many Sorrows were worth the innocence of those that survived. Joshua Graham is forever known not as a religious man, but as a war chief to the dead horses. So, if Daniel's plan, even with a large amount of intervention by Joshua, isn't the good ending for the Sorrows or the burned man, what is the good ending? If you remember back to just before the execution of Salt Upon Wounds, we're able to speak with Joshua after Salt Upon Wounds' plea for mercy.
Don't listen to this thing. His cries are those of a mad beast caught in a thicket. He gave no mercy to my family, and I will give none to his.
Here, provided with a high enough speech skill, we're able to get Joshua to admit his sinful desire.
He has a debt to pay for what he's done, and I've come to collect. And so he's chosen to cower in the water like a dumb animal.
Instead,
Let he who is without bad karma fire the first bullet.
encouraging Joshua to let go of his selfish desire for revenge and to let Salt Upon Wounds be killed by the hand of God instead.
I want to take from them what they took from me, from my family. In this life, I want them to suffer. I want all of them to die in fear and pain. I want to have my revenge against him, against Caesar. I want to call it my own, to make my anger God's anger, to justify the things I've done. Sometimes I tell myself that
Yeah, this dude is, lame.
these wildfires never stop burning. But I'm the one who starts them. Not God, not them. I can always see it in my mind. The warmth and the heat. It will always be a part of me. But not today.
What I mean by that is, if this dude is trying to use his religion as a shield, he's using it way too much as a sword to kind of justify his own beliefs, which is what, I'm really bad at remembering names, which is what Leon was talking about a moment ago, in a way.
Go. Get out of here. Go back. Back to the Great Salt Lake. That's it. It's finished. Thank you for staying with me. I couldn't have done this on my own. Let's go find Daniel. Tomorrow we'll be here soon. And there is much to do.
To get Joshua to admit his wrath is the 5th highest speech check in the game for a very good reason. Convincing someone to not take revenge on the killer of their family could only be done if they were as religious as Joshua is. By letting Salt Upon Wounds go and not breaking scripture, Joshua is placing his full faith in the Lord to show them wrath in the afterlife. And while unburned Joshua would have gladly taken place in sinful revenge like moments ago, burned Joshua has been baptized twice, once in water, once in flame, renouncing his service to sin. Deep down, Joshua doesn't want to break his covenants to God. He wants to be with his family in eternal salvation. So as God did to Joshua, Joshua did to Salt Upon Wounds. The broken white legs would end up falling victim to the same fate that had subjugated onto others. O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. The sorrows would end up much like the dead horses before battle. However, due to Joshua's mercy, they would keep a small bit of their innocence, as Daniel had hoped. As for Joshua himself, I'd like for the narrator to tell you, as I could not do it better myself.
The threat of the White Legs ended. Joshua Graham helped the sorrows and dead horses tend to their fallen comrades and secure Zion. The courier's words had stayed Joshua's wrath in his darkest hour, and in sparing Salt Upon Wounds, he was changed. While he continued to advocate militant opposition to the enemies of New Canaan, he sometimes showed quarter to those who crossed his family. Eventually, this new spirit would diminish the myth of the burned man in distant lands. A small price for the peace it brought to Joshua Graham.
Okay, I could see how that'd be a good ending for Joshua and whatnot. You get him to kind of follow the scripture a little bit more, but I still feel like he's missing a lot of the messages in the New Testament. As Next said, that's the key dichotomy of Joshua, the man of God he's trying to be, and the monster of the legion he became. Maybe. He's great because he's flawed. Have I checked to see if Honored Madman has any New Vegas videos? You're pretty sure he does? No, I just looked up some stuff for the Legion and Joshua Graham, and I saw Max the Rat, who I was already familiar with, and this video. But if we still have time tonight, we could try to look for some Honored Madman New Vegas stuff. Ain't nobody gave me suggestions. I asked for them.
No cap. Daniel, he is cringe. I hate hippies.
True. Damn it.
If I could describe Joshua Graham in
I was trying to stop it before it ended. Okay. So yeah, I enjoyed that video. I wasn't a fan of like all the jokes and the zoomer editing at the beginning, but he definitely put a lot of work into making this video, as evidenced by all the free cam stuff. I definitely appreciated a lot of the arguments that he was bringing, and I also appreciated that he went through the multiple dialogue options. Obviously, he didn't cover everything, but I think he did a great job nonetheless, truncating much of the story and events surrounding Joshua and the tribes and Daniel and whatnot. So anyway, that was a good video by Leon Talks a Lot. I'm going to go ahead and like it. And next we'll check out Fallout New Vegas, The Psychology of Joshua Graham by Max Durat. Oops. All right, here we go.
Here's a piece of interesting trivia. There are 30 companions available to quest with in Fallout New Vegas.
No, there's like 4. No, kidding.
8 of those
I have not met him. I met her, met him, met, no idea, met.
companions can become permanent followers.
Oh.
22 of them are only
I see. Okay. So I missed 1, 2?
available for a limited time. All of those followers have a neutral karma stat, save for one, Joshua Graham. He has a good karma stat. I would like to pose a question to those who already know Joshua's story. Does this seem right to you? Depending on your temperament and your willingness to forgive, Joshua's good karma might seem thematically appropriate, or it might seem like an aberration by the developers. The fact is, Joshua is responsible for committing some of the most heinous and vile crimes that one can imagine. That said, one could make a compelling argument that he suffered the requisite punishment for his crimes and successfully rehabilitated himself. Some religious Fallout fans have gone out of their way to cite Joshua as a solid representative of a born-again Christian, a standard worth emulating. Some have even said that Joshua Graham was what motivated them to go back to church. It is Joshua's capacity for both moral extremes that separates him from so many other characters in not just video games, but any work of fiction. It is for this reason that so many people, for so many years, have asked me to analyze Fallout New Vegas' story and to make Joshua Graham one of my first subjects. Ever since I first encountered Joshua Graham a few months ago, I have been trying to wrap my head around the structure of his psyche. What mental predisposition
It's easy, you just transform yourself into a bandage. 'Cause he's a mummy.
would cause someone to go from being a Mormon missionary to the right hand of a fascistic dictator? And then, what would that person's state of mind be like when said dictator sets you on fire and throws you off of a cliff? Never mind the feelings of betrayal that would induce. What about the divine significance you would attribute to your anomalous survival? All of these events happened to Joshua Graham. Events which weaved together a mind that not even the most abstract art would be able to illustrate. Nonetheless, I've obsessively tried to understand him.
I wonder if that abstract art would appear if you just unwound the bandages and got your own Rorschach.
It sounds strange to obsess over a fictional character's mental state like this. Yet I do so, because even though Joshua's life and the things he has suffered border on the mythical, they are not entirely implausible. It disturbs me to think that somebody like Joshua Graham could exist in our reality. Somebody whose cruelty and love are so profound that they flirt with the supernatural. Today, I intend to go through the events of Joshua Graham's life and provide a vivid picture of his changing mental state along the way. By doing that, I hope you will understand my and others' obsession with this character. Joshua Graham.
All right, I will say that the intro was a little bit long, but it's okay. LP hating on burn victims. Hey, I love Tommy Got His Gun, or Johnny Got His Gun. The one music video by Metallica.
Was born in the early 23rd century in the state of Utah. He grew up in a Mormon settlement known as New Canaan. During his youth, he demonstrated a natural aptitude with the tenets of the Mormon faith, as well as his ability to interpret languages. Soon after he began work as a missionary, a secular humanist organization known as the Followers of the Apocalypse encountered him during an expedition to the Grand Canyon. The followers were eager to recruit him for his interpreting skills, not only because it would make it easier to provide humanitarian relief to the tribes there, but to also understand their cultures and languages. Their first and last stop would be the Blackfoot tribe. Though Joshua performed his duties well, there must have been a mistranslation or misunderstanding at some point, for the Blackfoot went from receiving the followers with hospitality to hostility. The tribe held the followers for ransom on account of their
Does anybody know if we get like any dev insight into the actual incident that occurred with the Blackfeet or Blackfoots or whatever you call them and Joshua Graham and Caesar, or no?
known transgression, but this did not last for long. The Blackfoot were at war with several other tribes at the time, and they were losing fast. It is with this situation that a separate member of the followers saw an opportunity, a man named Edward Sallow. Using Joshua as an interpreter, he offered to help train the Blackfoot, teaching them how to build and maintain weapons, and how to use them most effectively in small unit combat. These were skills that Edward had learned on account of his interest in the ancient Roman Empire and how it was established, which he studied rigorously during his days as a student. Thanks to Edward and Joshua, the Blackfoot went from being in their death throes to the sole power of the region. As a tribute to the success of his Roman-style tactics, Edward changed his name to Caesar. Over the course of 30 years, Caesar would go on to conquer the other tribes of Utah, as well as others in the state of Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. He was infamous for his unique brand of brutal warfare, but that reputation was not gained solely by his efforts, for every dictator has his second in command.
Turns out Caesar's first war chief, the Malpace Legate, was a New Canaan.
You take a sip from your trusty Vault 13 canteen. Was I the only one that stashed this?
Joshua Graham. Legend goes that Graham was the meanest, toughest son of a bitch in the whole damn legion. The New Canaanites wouldn't talk about him. They were ashamed. Guess I can't blame them.
Though it is not unusual for religious fundamentalists to develop a murderous appetite, be it in Fallout New Vegas or real life, Joshua Graham developed his murderous appetite with both a breathtaking lack of hesitation and an unconscionable level of barbarity.
This actually makes me wonder, the Caravaneer guy, Jedediah, he says not to mention Joshua Graham, but apparently from some of Josh's dialogue, if you do progress further, he says that the New Canaanites welcomed him back, like the prodigal son. So then that makes me wonder why we're not to mention Joshua Graham. Is it to protect, maybe it's to protect his whereabouts and try to stop the prying eyes and ears of the Legion? Maybe that makes the most sense.
Joshua's explanation for this is as follows.
This way lies the path to hell. Caesar needed me to translate. Translation became giving orders. Giving orders became leading in battle. Leading in battle became training, punishing, terrorizing. A series of small mistakes before a great fall.
The information provided thus far gives us a few important details regarding Joshua's psychological makeup. For the majority of his life, Joshua fostered a sheepish faith in a greater authority, be it with Caesar or with God. At no point did he view himself as a potential source of authority, as an individual with his own will. He was always an extension of some other will. This love of exterior authority completely negated Joshua's capacity to self-reflect or glean any logical consistency in any doctrine he adhered to. And why would he? He garnered a positive identity as both an arm of God and an arm of Caesar, and he
I think there's probably a grain of truth in what Max is saying here, that he is kind of ingratiating himself as a part of a larger mechanism. I don't know if I'd go that far, but maybe he'll bring more points to back that up.
He did all of this without thinking for himself. This is why he slips into the role of a brutal war chief so well. He effectively negates any personal will by deferring to authority, conforming to the status quo, and blindly asserting an ideology at every possible opportunity.
And that is one thing that does bother me about Joshua Graham. It's not like he really comes to his realizations on his own. He doesn't choose to leave the Legion. He's kind of forced out. And then once he's forced out, he's like, well, screw the Legion, I'm angry. But I mean, if he wants to pretend that he's a self-righteous man of God, he is certainly not doing the best job of following the footsteps of the Lamb of God.
These three elements, authority, conformity, and ideology, are common explanations given in regards to war crimes and other circumstances involving excessive cruelty. One real-world example that I think is comparable to Joshua Graham is one laid out in a book titled Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. This book describes a Nazi police battalion filled with quote-unquote ordinary men. Men that were often middle-aged and grew up with moral and political frameworks that differed from the Nazis. Nonetheless, these ordinary men quickly accepted the top-down orders given to systematically round up Jews and other undesirables, march them out into a forest, and shoot them to death. I should note that these ordinary men were given the choice by their commander to not participate in the killing, but only 10 to 20% opted out. The other 80 to 90% who willingly participated experienced physical and mental repercussions at first, but they eventually settled into an unconscious routine of extermination. A common excuse given by these men when they were put on trial for their crimes is that they weren't going to leave their comrades to do the dirty work. It was easier for them to take another human's life than to be a nonconformist. Joshua Graham is similar in that he grew up with the moral framework of Mormonism, yet quickly converted to Caesar's moral framework, or lack thereof. Both Joshua and the Nazis were in environments that encouraged and rewarded this lack of independent thought or will. Where Joshua differs from the majority of those Nazis is that there is no evidence he ever experienced revulsion. He was seemingly fine killing men, women, and children right from the very beginning. He did not question, he did not protest. He was quick to obey orders and conform. Though Joshua's military
I really appreciate this breakdown here, because that's probably something that I could use to kind of recontextualize the way that I've gone through a portion of my life, or probably like my entire life, really. My problem, although I don't really consider it a problem, is that I'm kind of a nonconformist. And thinking about it in that kind of term is a little bit, I don't want to say like eye-opening, but I've been struggling to find a way to like try to describe myself in a concise manner. Because in one way, it's easy to say that I'm a contrarian, but I'd never thought that was truly true. I think it's more that I'm a nonconformist, so I can't really relate to the whole conformity thing in general. Like, even when I went into boot camp and stuff, like, I was still me. I didn't really conform. I was just kind of belligerently obedient, which was funny and painful in its own right. But I mean, it didn't really change me. But I've met people who've said that, like, after they went on leave from boot camp, they just kind of sat in their house waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And in my mind, I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, I don't know. I guess our experiences were different, or maybe just we were different. You think being dismissal all the time is affecting my understanding of things? Perhaps. I mean, I wouldn't consider it dismissal as much as it is like a just nonconformist. Like, I want to be true to myself, and I don't necessarily care that much about conformity. But of course, it's not like a end all be all type thing. At times, people need to conform to kind of fit in, or just to avoid unnecessary friction. So saying it in the vacuum of the stream makes it sound a bit more extreme than it actually is. But yeah, as far as like the whole book and accounts that he brought up, as dark and perhaps as disgusting as it is, it makes sense to me that conformity is one of the biggest motivators for having people do stuff like that. And there's a number of factors that tie into the conformity, which is kind of hard to just do justice in such a short amount of time. Because part of the conformity, I'm assuming, of doing such dirty work as they did is also trying to avoid having others' eyes upon those who participated. Let me rephrase that. They didn't want to have, by participating, they wouldn't have as many eyes on them had they not participated, if that makes sense. So it's really nasty work, but pulling away from such a terrible example, that's kind of always been one of the biggest bonds or pieces of glue that kept units together during times of warfare, not wanting your teammates to either think less of you or to put them in a burdensome position by refusing to conform or to go along, or by deserting. That's kind of one of the biggest motivators. There's like an intrinsic guilt factor that causes people to kind of stay within their units and stuff. KD, relate, but you find it quite fascinating how it may affect people. That's why you think characters like Joshua are quite fascinating. Yeah. Like, did he never think he had an opportunity to walk away? Did he ever consider it? It would be nice to have that bit of characterization about him.
Military career was mostly characterized by enormous success. He made one fatal mistake in attempting to take over Hoover Dam in the state of Nevada, a location controlled by their political competition, the New California Republic. As the Legion attempted to take over the dam, the NCR soldiers baited them into the nearby Boulder City. Once the majority of the Legion soldiers were there, explosives were detonated in all the nearby buildings. These buildings became, in effect, large fragmentation bombs, killing and maiming most of the legionaries. This forced Joshua and the few remaining survivors to retreat. Now, most reasonable people might be willing to forgive this mistake, even if it was one of considerable gravity. Remember, up until this point, Joshua never failed during a military excursion. Nonetheless, Caesar could not accept any form of failure, even at the highest ranks. Caesar made an example out of Joshua by covering him in pitch, lighting him on fire, and throwing him into the Grand Canyon.
On one hand, I can see the sense in Caesar's actions there in trying to keep that kind of totalitarian grip on power. But on the other hand, there's like the whole adage where if you are trying to cup water and you grip too hard, all of the water will go out of your hands and you'll be left with nothing. And I think that can apply to these types of scenarios as well. There's a couple famous civil wars that happened in China because the emperor's punishments were going to be turned against people that were trying to follow the emperor's edict but failed. And since they'd already failed in their duty, they're like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So there was a guy who was in charge of transporting prisoners, but they escaped. And the punishment for letting prisoners escape was death. So the dude's like, well, they're going to kill me anyway, so I may as well join these prisoners to fight the government. And I think he wins. It's like the way to avoid punishment is to become the leader of the country, I guess. Don't read into that too much.
Let me ask all of you this. Would it be possible, in reality, to survive being lit on fire and thrown into the Grand Canyon? I'm sure most of us would comfortably say that 99% of the time, that would result in death. But would it happen 100% of the time? Let's hypothesize that it would be possible to survive that. Imagine you not only suffered the physical pain of live immolation and an enormous fall, but also the emotional pain of betrayal, a crime which would sentence its committer to the lowest ring in Dante's hell. If you survived all of that, might you be inclined to attribute divine meaning to your survival? Sure, it's easy for some of you to say you wouldn't as you sit comfortably in your chair watching this YouTube video. It's another thing to lie helplessly under the harsh Utah sun with only God, real or not, to save you. Two things are for certain though. One, most people in Joshua's situation would not have the strength to get up and travel for 3 months back to their town of origin, which is what he did. Two, neither you nor Joshua could offer a scientific explanation for how he physically managed to do that.
I feel like, no, that's just dumb.
However, I will offer a mental, emotional reason for why Joshua was able to do this. Of the things that Joshua was now deprived of, one could argue that the most painful loss he suffered was his identity. He based his entire identity on belonging to the collectives of Mormonism and the Legion. Now, the Legion has rejected him, and there couldn't possibly be any way the Mormons would take him back. Without that collective identity, what of Joshua's identity as an individual? As the fire around Joshua's body dissipated, and the dark specter of death clouded his eyes in darkness, he was gifted a fire from within. Whether that gift was a natural outcome or a product of God is up for debate, but nonetheless, that inner light, that inner gift, was the ability to self-reflect. It is with this newfound ability that, for the first time, Joshua began to develop his identity as an individual. He began by asking himself, how did I get here? How did I survive? Why did I survive? Should I survive? Is what I feel now what my victims felt as I killed them? These questions, from a psychological point of view, were more precious than any of the territory or treasures wrongly inherited under Caesar's reign.
I would like to know if any of this information is given in like dev interviews or in-game text, because this just feels like it's not, and it's conjecture on the part of Max, which could be fine, but I mean, it wasn't framed that way, which kind of irks me, I guess.
As Michael Mahoney says in his book, Human Change Processes, episodes of intense emotional distress and disorder often reflect natural and, yes, even healthy, expressions of an individual's struggles towards reorganization. Given that Joshua went through the most extreme form of distress, it stands to reason that this might induce the most extreme form of self-reflection and, by proxy, the most extreme reward. I imagine that the negative euphoria that resulted from the immolation and the fall would put Joshua in an almost psychedelic, transcendental state, where he could peer deeper into his soul than almost anybody that has ever lived. If Joshua could survive that and take the lessons he learned from this deep introspection, his efforts to right the wrongs of his past would bear an almost supernatural quality. And that's exactly what happened. Not only was Joshua able to survive...
Damn it, I was going to say, I like that he set this up as, I think this, and then he goes into, that's exactly what happened. Even if that is a good description, I just prefer a little bit more care with words sometimes.
Against
That's a lie. I care about words all the times, unless I'm memeing.
impossible odds, he was able to reorient his deeply perverted moral compass and commit deeds that not only merited good karma, but turned him into a legend of mythic proportions. The legend of the Burned Man. As I just said, Joshua managed to not only walk away from the incident, but travel for 3 months back to New Canaan, where he was, surprisingly, gifted with love and acceptance by the Mormon community. Joshua equated the love that he received with the fire that burst forward from within as he laid at the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
The fire that had kept me alive was love. Their love. God's love. I will never be able to repay the debt I owe to them, but I must try.
Word of his survival spread throughout the land. The legend of the Burned Man made it all the way to Caesar. Upon hearing this, he not only made discussion of the Burned Man forbidden in Legion circles, but he also employed every method available to him to hunt Joshua down. One method involved a Utah tribe known as the White Legs, who were seeking membership within Caesar's Legion. Caesar promised them membership if they successfully killed not only Joshua, but the new Canaanites that protected him. The White Legs were almost successful. They killed the bulk of the new Canaanites, leaving the rest of them to flee into Zion Canyon. There, Joshua assumed the position of war chief. He resolved to protect the remaining new Canaanites, along with a separate tribe from the area known as the Sorrows. Though the situation would be excruciatingly difficult to solve, Joshua saw this unfortunate turn of events as an opportunity. If he could save the new Canaanites from the White Legs, he would not only be able to pay them back for the love they showed him upon his return, but make another substantive step away from his dark past. When I first met Joshua, the pain he suffered and the wisdom that pain conferred became immediately apparent. It radiated, no pun intended, off of every word he spoke. The best example of this
No, Max, you should have made that pun intended.
that I can provide is when/if you threaten to harm one of his compatriots, a missionary named Daniel. Every word in his response feels as if they were methodically chosen for the purpose of maximizing fear.
Yeah, that is actually one of the aspects of Joshua Graham's dialogue that I did enjoy from the very little that I encountered with him. Like saying that there were many reasons to not do harm to Daniel, but he'll give us 3, and then actually kind of giving 3 decent ones. I appreciated.
There are many reasons why that would be a bad idea. I will illuminate 3.
Hey, these ones.
First, do not believe that because Daniel is a missionary, he is incapable of or unwilling to defend himself. Second,
Yeah, that distinction right there to say that he's incapable and also, or that he's capable of defending himself and, wait, how does he just phrase this? That he is not incapable or unwilling to defend himself are 2 very important distinctions to make, and I just kind of appreciated the precision of his words there.
if you harm Daniel or any of the Sorrows or dead horses, I will find you. Make no mistake. God willing, you will not leave this valley. Lastly, waging war against good people is bad for the soul. This may not seem important to you now, but it's the most important thing I've said.
Every word that Joshua speaks here is filled with divine resolution, fueled by the fires of love and of pain. This is a man who knows both love and pain better than anybody, not only how to feel both, but how to distribute both. I imagine this is helped in part by the constant pain he feels from his bodily injuries, It constantly reminds him of what he did in his past, and why he must never stop trying to repay the debt he owes to those he wronged. That said, it is clear to me that the unimaginable pain he feels and has felt does have its deleterious effects. Though the fire did burn away much of his former personality, one thing that remains is a tendency towards extreme violence.
I want them to suffer. I want all of them to die in fear and pain. I want to have my revenge.
The funny thing is, I was about to say and pause it, like, oh, I don't know if it's that extreme. Like, the next dialogue is literally, I want them to suffer. All right.
Against him, against Caesar. I want to call it my own, to make my anger God's anger, to justify the things I've done.
While I think it is fair to say that Joshua made a genuine change of heart and has done good deeds, it's stuff like what he just said that makes me question whether or not his good karma status is earned. Even though Joshua seeks justice for his tribe and cites scripture as justification for his brutality, he seems to forget that the God he worships not only seeks justice, but also dispenses mercy. They are seemingly opposite elements, but so are cruelty and love. Joshua integrated both the extreme capacity for cruelty and for love into his personality. And as I said before, it is his ability to dispense both in equal and extreme measure that makes him so profound.
And that also makes me curious about what he was like when he was a legionnaire, essentially.
Unless he can develop the capacity for mercy, he risks reverting back to his old ways, especially if he fails to protect the ones he loves. One other thing that some of the atheists in my audience might add is that he should develop this capacity for mercy not on account of his religious mandate, but on account of his own will. But I wonder if his thoroughly tortured psyche would be able to endure that. Though he moved past his crisis of identity by willing one for himself, I wonder how he would fare with a crisis of faith. What if there was no transcendent purpose to his morality? Would he be like the character of Randall Clark, who maintained his sanity and morality despite his atheism? I fear, given Joshua's persistent taste for violence and his enduring pain, that he would become an even worse monster than he was before. But I wonder if that is a necessary risk, so that Joshua could fully earn his good karma, not just in the eyes of his tribe, but gamers all over the world. I
mean, you could also make the argument that even if he did have a crisis of faith, he could still kind of overcome the crisis of morality that would follow that. I don't really feel as though one precludes the other, but I digress. All right, Ask Next, you have a good night, and thanks for joining us as always. Take care.
That Joshua would fully earn his good karma provided he completes two separate tests. One is overcoming a crisis of faith, and the other is granting mercy to the leader of the White Legs at the end of his storyline. Granted, Joshua's choice is determined by the player's interactions with him, but you understand why I am framing this as if he is making his own choice. If he lets the leader of the White Legs live, and survives his crisis of faith, then Joshua's legacy would be so great that it would undoubtedly inspire its own religion, like the aforementioned Randall Clark inspired the religion of the Sorrows. Best of all, that religion will worship Joshua just as the Mormons worshipped their God. Though their God was wrathful, meting out divine justice in the form of the flood, the plagues, and much more, their God was also merciful, loving, and most importantly, forgiving.
But I believe that our Lord was made flesh as Jesus Christ, and died to redeem me, and you, and the Sorrows, even the White Legs, everyone.
Before I conclude, I would like to offer special thanks to two people. Thank you, Arcane, for reviewing the script for this video and for discussing the Fallout universe with me. And special thanks to Corbin for motivating me to play Fallout New Vegas in the first place, and for telling me to seek out Joshua Graham. And also, thank you both for supporting me at the highest tier on Patreon. It is thanks to you and all the others who support me on Patreon that I can continue to make these videos, not just for the purpose of entertainment, but for my greater goal of one day having video game narratives taught in classrooms worldwide. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, and maybe consider checking out my other video on Fallout New Vegas, where I analyze the aforementioned Randall Clark. And before you go, let me know in the comments section what part of Fallout New Vegas you would like me to do a video on next. Until my next video, just remember, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.
All right, cool. I do think that was a pretty good recap of events and an interesting look into the psychology of Joshua Graham. I'm going to go ahead and share Max's video with the chat if you guys want to give him some support. And I've gone ahead and liked it as well. So I don't have any other videos queued up because I tend to react to Elden Ring content a bit more at length than Fallout content, because I guess I have a lot more to say about Elden Ring and Dark Souls stuff in general. So I don't want to go searching for another video right now and like having to update the description and tag it and everything. So I think I'll go ahead and call it here for the night. I'm kind of tired. I need to take care of some other things for tomorrow's stream as well. So tomorrow I'm going to start playing the demo for Stone Machia, which is kind of like Chessel. Wait, I could just play a trailer, can't I? Stone Machia trailer. This should be coming out later this year, so let's do the one that came out 8 days ago. Or this one. It's Chess Souls, guys. Pawn, bishop, rook, knight. Can't be the queen, though, or the king.
Non avere paura.
Be not afraid.
Avrei dovuto essere perfetto.
I should have been perfect. Infinite.
Assoluto.
Absolute.
I miei incubi
My nightmares died today.
Narrava lo scultore.
The sculptor narrated of the most beautiful angel,
marcito,
rotten in his core,
divelto,
torn apart, who lost control.
Che tu sia
Cursed be you.
maledetto. Oltre la guglia
Beyond the
sarai
spire you will be
salvo.
safe.
Stai attento.
Beware.
Quell'armatura
That armor.
tenteranno
They will try in every
tutti i
way
modi
to seize
di
it.
sottrartela.
See, that's coming out May 26th. I thought it looked pretty interesting. This seems like one of those games where I wouldn't be able to tell if it's good or not just from trailers. So I'm eager to see what the demo is like and how that'll inform me playing it in the future. So, yeah, we'll be checking that one tomorrow, the demo at least, because the full game isn't releasing. And then after that, I might do Dragon Age Origins. I also forgot that I did actually go ahead and buy L.A. Noire. because that game always interested me, but we'll figure that out when we get to that path. So anyway, that'll be it for tonight's stream, everybody. Thank you so much for joining as always. Thank you to the creators of the videos that we watched earlier, Max Durant and Leon Talks a Lot. They were enjoyable. And hopefully I'll catch you all on the next one. And Dylan, welcome in, and sorry for saying goodbye so soon. But anyway, that'll be it for me tonight. We'll be live again at the normal time of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, take care, stay safe. Last Protagonist out.